Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. I am here with another incredible, dare I say, magical human. Korie Kennedy is here.
Hello,
Welcome.
thank you.
I often dance between having guests introduce themselves or me introducing them. I have a little struggle conceptualizing people that I see as very expansive, but I shared my intro with Korie before we hit record, and she was like, that I feel seen. So I'm going to read this introduction and then invite Korie to add her voice to the mix and just share about the human that's arriving here today. So
That's good.
today's guest is Korie Kennedy, a business coach who helps creative, purpose driven entrepreneurs build businesses that actually support the lives they're trying to create, not consume them. After spending a decade building and leading a wellness and martial arts studio and its leadership development program, she spent the last 5 years helping both families and business owners create the structures, rhythms, roles, and systems that free them to spend more time in their unique joy and genius. What I especially love about Korie's work is that she doesn't see structure as the opposite of creativity. She sees it as the thing that allows creativity, contribution, and human flourishing to thrive.
Woohoo!
Yes, more of that in the world, please, and thank you.
Oh my
Welcome.
gosh. Thank you so much for having me. This is super exciting. Happy to be here.
Yeah.
That was beautiful because I'm like, can I steal this for my website? I just
Absolutely.
feel so seen because I feel like you brought out the exact pieces of my work that matter the most to me. So kudos to you. Thank you for doing that.
Wonderful. It's my joy and it's my projector genius to do that. Go to the root of the root
Mm.
of the root and reflect that back. So yay.
Yeah, perfect.
Now, so that we can get present with our humaning today, just who's the human that's showing up? This is your fancy doing. How are
The
you as you arrive in this space today? Who are you as you arrive in this space today?
Oh, what a perfect question. This reminds me of when I start my sessions with clients. I'm like, because sometimes you start a session and then you're just like, well, wait a second. How are you arriving today to this moment? I'm arriving to looking at my screen and being like, oh, I have beautiful like space and a plant behind me, and then looking into my room and seeing piles of clothes and mom life strewn about, and sort of at a place, I think, in general in my life where I'm more noticing the ebbs and flows and the tension and the, expansion with groundedness. So even though I'm like seeing this sort of juxtaposition here, I'm feeling, and I think this sort of a metaphor for my life in general right now. And I'm in this place of noticing it and just observing it. I think that's where I'm arriving today.
I really appreciate that because I think it's easy for people who do the kind of work you do and who move through life the way I have experienced you. You know, we shared a board experience together. I watched you wrangle creative chaos in a beautiful way. To know that people like you also have some creative chaos and that there is this both and going on, that you're not like the what is it, the home edit that had the bookshelves that were lined by color. I still try and do it. I have to, it's not perfect, but I love the look of it. But
Yeah.
I also just recently had to clean up sticky note piles all over my desk that made it feel like my brain was rattling. It's, and I love knowing that I know I can be kind of chaotic, but that you have laundry piles that you're looking at. So
I
thank
feel like people love learning that about me. And I think the funny thing is that I couldn't do the work that I do with the people that I do it with if that wasn't me.
you. Yeah.
If I haven't been finding my own containers for the creative overflow in my life for so long, like really since I was little, I remember this sort of movement and dance between my absolute what did you said this one time? There was unicorn. What is this? You like unicorn poop creativity or something? What was this?
Oh, yes. Laura, when we were collaborating on different things, she would say that I shit content like a unicorn. Like that, I just am a content machine and I've just got creative ideas and concepts and new programs just coming out like unicorn poo. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So if I hadn't been sort of doing that dance with my unicorn rainbow poo since I was a little kid, and then like figuring out the beauty that comes with finding the right containers that still allow you to flow, I know I couldn't relate to the people that I'm working with now. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's very much a
And
part of it.
yeah, and that speaks to what I perceive as I can call it a lot of different things, but I'll call it new paradigm leadership for now, where it's leading with rather than leading from a pedestal. And I think there's the world is just hungry for that. And I think people can project a perfected lens on me. I've felt that before, and it's my leadership consciously to be very sort of me too about it. I'm doing this work beside you. Hopefully I've got some extra tools. Hopefully I've got some extra insights that often are hard earned, but I'm in it. I'm not beyond it. And I hear that in what you're saying, which is really important when you're talking about family dynamics and entrepreneurship. Those are both very spiritual, very vulnerable, very tied to our nervous systems and security. So, creating safety through the relationship
Well,
is what I'm hearing.
absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, I think when you said the world is hungry for this, I think like for a leading with modality, I think it's also just in the right space for it now than in much of our history as civilization. Like we're entering this economic era. I think because of a lot of the technologies that we've advanced over the last maybe the last few decades, really, that's allowing us to finally enter the age of the digital age, but I'm calling it the age of the artist. I
Yeah.
think that the artist within all of us is going to finally be able to thrive. That's my belief. It's maybe a little optimistic, but I really believe that we're not only hungry for it, we're finally going to be able to do it.
Yes. Oh my gosh, let's hover here for a moment because you and I have had conversations before and I think it's a conversation that a lot of people are having and want to have of what's our relationship with technology, specifically AI, and our humanity and our creativity. And you and I think have aligned on this both end of that whereas we need to focus on the impact of things like AI and environment and all of those things.
Yeah.
And you and I both have talked about how AI has the ability to do the stuff like this left hemispheric organization structuring stuff that actually creates more space for human creative potential to flow. And
Yeah.
I think it's a really interesting concept to sit with because it's not making one thing good or bad. We understand the complexity of the impact of this technology, but it's not just sort of taking human jobs. It's taking certain types of functioning to open more spaciousness for a different type of functioning. So I want to plop all that in your lap and see what thoughts and feelings and inspiration you want to share with the people.
Well, what I picked up from what you just said is that it's not you said it's not taking human jobs. What I heard in that is it's actually giving us an opportunity to take the inhumane work out of some of what we're supposed to be or feel like we're supposed to be doing, right? Like it takes the inhumanness away from what we really want to call ourselves and what I think we're each of us called as individuals to be. So that doesn't necessarily mean that it's taking organization away from people because I do believe there are people, I work with this a lot with my clients of trying to come drop into the belief that there are people who really love the detailed work,
Blows
you
my
know.
mind. Still blows my mind, Korie. When I sit with you, I'm like, you like that?
Well, it's funny because I like systems and I like organization, but I'm not as much of like I'm going to sit there and go through the nitty-gritty data details, right? So there's some of that that AI can handle, but I think that even for those very detail-oriented humans, there's still a humanness that they are craving to have and that they deserve as their birthright to have, that in the way our modern society is structured, that gets taken from us. So I think there's an element where AI is able to be whatever it is for each individual that allows them to be more human, which is such a bizarre thing that I don't know that I would have thought I would say when I first started diving into it. But I mean, it is a nuanced issue. There's so much to unpack. There's a lot of fear. I mean, the terror around what's going to happen over the next few decades in our society as a collective is so real. I'm sure as someone who feels these things, it's just palpable to you. And I just, for those listening, I guess one thing I want to remind us is we've had moments in our history for hundreds and thousands of years where there's been collective terror that something was going to happen, and it turned out in an unexpected way where we were okay.
Yeah.
It's possible that there's a way to have AI turn out in that way, at least to some degree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know your background is in anthropology and, mine is in just humans. And I think about how there are these cycles of creation that are very big. And there's creation, destruction, challenge, change, and my work is about relationship and building relational capacity to be with change. And what I also hear in what you're saying is let's look at our relationship with AI and craft
Yeah.
our individual and collective relationship with AI mindfully and with nervous system regulation and with intention and values. And I think that's where I observe us going real sideways with change, challenge, and technology is we don't take that moment, and you mentioned noticing, to slow down enough to notice
Yeah.
where we are, where it is, whatever it is out there, and what we want to do, invest in, craft. Like that moment of choice when we have it, or um, influence, co-creation, whatever we want to call it, with this new something. And AI is a relationship, just like we all have a relationship with our phones or the internet.
Yeah, or I mean, absolutely. I think we forget that we have a relationship with all the entities in our life, just like the people in our life. We have a relationship with money, we have a
Oh,
relationship
do we? I don't
with
ever.
yes.
I've never had a healing moment with money.
Girl, I know you have. So what I like about what you're saying again is that technology of any kind or all of these entities can be something that brings us away from our humanness, but it also can be something that taps us back into it, just like it can bring us away from our bodies.
Yeah.
And it can tap us back into, I think what you're naming is the wisdom that happens when we slow down and we listen to our bodies, because that's really where we live, in reality. And the background in anthropology, which is I just studied it in undergrad, that was my major. And then sort of combined with a 25 plus year practice of Zen meditation has been my path. And I think that grounds a lot of the work I do. And it's so much about noticing and combining that with the anthropology, it's a lot about noticing humans and noticing the body and noticing relationships. And then on top of that, and I think this is sort of the thing that brought those two things together, was my martial arts practice. So for like 15 plus years, I've been studying martial arts. To me, that's very much a combination of noticing and humanness.
Can you say more about that? As someone who has never practiced martial arts, how
Yeah.
does this, I sense that there's like a metaphor or there's some symbolic something that wants to be brought into the space. I'm sure there's many. I know
So
that
much.
much from
Yeah.
just knowing about martial arts, but for those listening who are like me who don't have direct experience, what would you say about that? Because there's a
Yeah, I mean,
spiritual and an active component, I know.
spiritual and an active. Yeah. So, I mean, one thing is that the martial art I studied was is very special. It was something that just called me in from the moment. So I was going through in my like I was like 21 or something, and I was out of a breakup. I was trying to like rediscover myself. I was feeling very lost from like the girl that I was when I was like 11, and then you just sort of drift, or you can, from that person. And I was trying to find her again. And one thing that came to me was I just felt interested in martial arts. So I had a friend who's like, I'm going to help you find the right martial arts school. And we went around to try a bunch of different places. And I tried Taekwondo, and I tried, jujitsu and wrestling and all those things. And when I walked in the door of this place, it's a long story, but it was essentially like a basement, and there were like three people, like two people and the instructor there. It was really just sort of a group of people training. But once I just felt something about this art from the moment I started, and it was the humanness of it. It was that it's called Budo Taijutsu. It's such an interesting art with I would say a lot of different opinions about it, because it was a closely guarded secret. It actually comes from 9 different schools of the ninja and samurai from ancient Japan in the mountains of Japan. And it was a closely guarded secret until my previous grandmaster, so maybe like in the 80s, he decided to open it up, take it to, other parts of the world. And it was this crazy thing. So it's very rooted and connected to its culture.
Mm.
Whereas a lot of martial arts have been separated from, there's like a sport, or there's capoeira, there's like a dance. They had to get hidden because they got exposed to the outside world. They sort of had to do it in secret in some ways. And so some of them are very watered down in that sense. But this art is very much about discovering yourself as the means of you can't advance without deep, intensive self-discovery.
Mm.
There literally are tests where you have to be so aware of your surroundings, on a level that I wouldn't have even fathomed possible in order to pass. Surroundings as they relate to you, like if some harm is coming to you. So there's that. But it's such a spiritual journey in terms of just being okay with uncertainty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I'm hearing, and tell me if I'm off, that and I'm about to have just a real joyful moment of resonance here, if this is accurate, that the way to build capacity with uncertainty or perceived danger is through deep presence and connection to like self and environment at the same time, kind of.
Absolutely. Have your joyful moment.
I
It
mean,
definitely
yes,
came
that's
into
the
that.
embodiment of the work that I do and that you do. I
Yeah, you
love
see
when
how they go
there's a
so hand in hand.
beautiful symbolic way to understand it because it's so complex. And what I hear is the, I think that you started with this embodiment practice and then your work kind of grew from that felt essence. Because I perceive your work as very like there is a structure that is protecting what matters.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. That's exactly it. There's a structure, but in our martial art, what we say is only do as much taijutsu as you have to. Taijutsu is body movement. And the body movement is sort of it's sort of you controlling the kukan, controlling the space. And our grandmaster, I remember my first trip to Japan, I wrote down, he said, you don't need force to have control. You don't need anything you think you might need to have control. So control is like really about self-mastery. And you move yourself so much less than you think you have to when you feel in danger or uncertain, and you feel like, okay, you've got to do something and move. Sometimes we make these big, grand gestures. We make so much structure in this. I'm absolutely case number one for this of like, all right, I've got to plan all this stuff, and I've got to put all the schedules in place and all the time management to be able to like have the freedom that I want and to live the life that truly brings me joy. But really, you just do enough taijutsu to create the structure that allows the flow. So
Yeah.
that's really where, and I ran a martial arts and wellness and sort of it was wellness, fitness, leadership program and martial arts school for a decade. So it was through that, my Zen practice, my martial arts practice, that I was able to run that studio in a way that was really alive for me. And also learn lessons that helped me become more alive in letting that studio go.
Yeah, because that's how it works, right? It's not an arrival, it's a practice. And
Yeah.
I want to go deeper into this because I think a lot of people that listen to this podcast are probably in some sort of leadership position or entrepreneur, solopreneur, whatever. And I definitely spent years and years and years, and I'm sure I'll do it more times, where I over engineered something. I overperformed something. I tried to control something. And I mostly do this in my business. My relationships are pretty great and they flow. I trust all the things. Where I get tight and fearful and scared is around my business because it's like my second child.
Right.
And somehow I trust the human child deeply, but this business child, I've struggled at times to trust. And I think learning about my human design, and we're going to talk, there's some fun things about your design I'll bring up later, but as a projector, I learned I absolutely have a finite amount of doing energy. And that's not a limitation. It's just that my energy and my energetic system works differently. So I have to be mindful of it in a different way than some other types so that I don't burn out.
Yeah.
And so that way of trying to over control rather than see the 2% change I need to make. Trying to build a whole program overnight because I got excited rather than go, let me make these 2 phone calls to people who would be ideal and get their feedback and then move to the next step and then move to the next. I've had to learn the unsexy practice of incremental change and incremental investment and steadiness for my well-being and because
Yeah.
I love what I do. And I'm wondering if because you're a generator type, so you have more energetic capacity, and I'm sure you work with a whole bunch of different people. But what can you say about that, finding that line of when you're trying to control something and maybe overachieve, perform? I think you and I both work with a lot of people like that,
Yeah.
maybe because we are. And when you just need that, like, almost I see it like a soft shift or the one next step or something like that. Can you just speak to that? I didn't ask it super clearly, but I think you know what I'm saying.
I think I get where what you're throwing down. I think when I'm hearing this, I'm seeing clients. So I'm seeing people I've worked with. So I did a leadership program. I worked with a lot of different folks. And in my coaching practice, once I transitioned 5 or so years ago to coaching, I worked with parents and families, and I also worked with business owners. So I do both. Right now, I'm focusing on doing group coaching with parents and one-on-one and some workshops and like strategic development, as you know, with business owners and executives. But I think the through line through all of that is that systems can be both a gateway and an escape,
Mhm.
right? And that's one piece.
Can you
Another,
say that again? Say that again for the people in the back, because I think I would have needed to hear that a couple of times about
yeah.
3 years ago.
Yeah, our systems can be a gateway or an escape. So, just to dive more into that, if you think about it from this human perspective, from the way that our nervous systems and our ways of looking at the world evolved over time, up until this very rapid change of modern civilization, we had both the big picture kind of fairly clear because the big picture wasn't huge in terms of how life is supposed to go, kind of the constellation of the tribe and our place in it. And then we also had a lot of time to be present in our body and notice what's the next right step, Okay. So I think that when we over engineer, we're noticing how hard it is to see the big picture in modern society. And so we're trying to get to that because that's a sort of important part of our nervous system regulation. And I don't mind doing that with people. That's a case where AI does help you a lot. It kind of, you can just say it all. And I even have my clients, a lot of business owners have so much vision and so many things written in kind of different places and different manuals that they've created. And I just sort of have you like throw that out to me and I synthesize it all for our first session. And that gives us the grounding and the landing. And okay, I do see the big picture. I do see where I want to go. We can refine that a little. But where it gets to be an escape for all sorts of reasons we can unpack is we get lost in making new iterations of that over and over every step of the way. And what I really help try to help my clients ground in, and I think it just helps anyone to have someone you're meeting with on a regular basis that's holding that big picture for you and reminding you to feel into your body and create a sprint, I call it. I'm sure a lot of people call it this, right? Where you're focusing on one typically core piece at a time towards that larger vision. And that's the part that I think is one of the unique things about my work is I honor that the sprints and the focus within the sprints are scary.
Yeah.
It can be hard to just be present with, I've got to focus on this one morning habit and I've got to just not try to do a million other things, but I'm going to create this one foundation and consistency within it. And that's going to bring up, because it's allowing spaciousness, it's going to bring up the things inside of me that I maybe don't want to face, but that I know when I do, there's all this beautiful life that I couldn't have imagined ahead of me. Yeah.
Yeah. That's really interesting because what I'm sensing as you talk about that is there's a vulnerability in devotion to a thing,
Yeah.
like choosing a thing, and a vulnerability to the space that that devotion creates.
Say
Because
that once more for the people in the back.
yeah, I think it's risky to invest in a thing. I definitely feel that when I'm launching a new something or choosing focus because it's safer on a nervous system level to dilute it and be like, I don't know, take from the buffet, see, let me see what the people like. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or, and not clarity. If you pick a thing instead of 15, there's breath around it.
The
And
devotion.
there's
Yeah.
there's time to see what those parts within our inner system are scared of,
Yeah.
are running from, are maybe running towards and really overwhelmed by desire or vision. There's all this space to listen and be present and feel. And I think I can definitely speak to one of my long patterns that I know very well now, thankfully, but I didn't for a long time was like workaholism as a way to avoid feeling vulnerable.
Yes.
As if I just stayed in motion and in devotion to something that felt really important, whether it was my work or a person or who knows what, I didn't have to feel whatever it was that was lurking beneath that. I had no idea
Yeah.
I was doing it, but any of that frenetic energy that I feel now, I know I'm trying to run from something. So it's
Yeah,
actually
and
my
I don't even know
indicator
if
now to
that
slow
one would
down.
be called devotion. Like when you're like it's almost like having blinders on versus being devoted. Like when I think of
Yeah.
devotion, it has spaciousness around it. And then whatever this is, where you're just sort of like head down,
Fixation. Let's call it
fixation,
fixation.
fixation
Devotion
versus
versus fixation.
devotion. Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
love that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's such a great distinction. I can I share an example?
Absolutely.
So, one of the things that really changes my life, and I know it changes my life, is getting to sleep early. Like my body needs to go to bed before like 9:30 to really thrive. And
Mhm.
I know this. I don't know that I always knew it, but I kind of had a suspicion that that might have been the thing because I wasn't doing I would just stay up until I was exhausted, and the exhaustion was how my body knew to go to bed.
Mhm.
And the exhaustion was like my fixation. It was like the I'm addicted to exhaustion and staying up, and that's the way that I sort of get my mind to not have space to feel things.
Yeah.
So when I devoted to go to bed before I was exhausted, I
Mhm.
was lying there in a dark room with my real self, not myself too exhausted to feel and think. And
Mm.
I had no choice. Once I devoted, I was like, oh my God, I just have to lie here with this. And I mean, it was beautiful and it was terrifying. And I would sometimes just lie there and like cry, like just tears streaming down into the bed. Like I don't even know what I'm feeling, but I'm feeling things and that's beautiful. I'm actually alive. And it's when I devote to that practice, and that's just like one step, right? There's a million other self-care things I could have done, but just devoting to that one step moves mountains. And then it's like other things fall into place. My meditation practice starts coming out again, these things, but sometimes it's really just devotion to that one thing.
Yeah.
And actually, I will say my Zen sort of teacher that I've been following for many years, she's around here, Tejo from Great Tree. Um, she has people come to her temple that teach lots of different things. Like when I was a teenager, she had someone come who taught Alexander technique. And she had us come in and like she noticed how we were sitting and helped us like adjust mindfully to the way our body wanted to sit on the mat and noticing that. And and that was her practice. And I remember Tejo saying, it's not one thing or the other. It's not that have to be an Alexander technique practitioner. You could be yoga. I'm devoted to meditation, but it's the devotion that actually makes the changes.
Yeah. And what I hear within that is it's a devotion to that relationship with the self.
Yes.
And I think that gets really conflated in our current culture. I think people often think relationship to the self is identity and ego. Like I'm going to the gym, I'm doing my things, I'm connected to myself, but my experience is that building a relationship with the self often has a bit of cringe before you get there. It has a bit of resistance. It has a bit of awkwardness. It has a bit of not knowing. It has a bit of uncertainty. It's like that's the little portal that helps us greet a new part of ourselves. And we're such a fast, fun, free and easy culture, the narrative that we're sold, that often we think something's wrong if there's a hitch, if there are tears when you lay in bed, if there's whatever. And there is such opportunity in those moments. I mean, I'm not saying I like them now. I just believe deeply in them. And so when I have a moment where there's like, oh, I don't feel right, instead of trying to go run 3 miles, literally, which is what I did at different phases of my life, I go, okay, who's here? What,
Yeah.
like, whether it's somatically or using some parts work stuff, like, okay, what's here? Like, there's
Yeah.
something trying to get my attention and it needs some love or presence or something. And to me, that's what building a relationship with the self feels like. It's got this like curiosity and compassion and kind of some ick before the magic.
So before the magic. I mean, I think it's true because gosh, I'm almost like in the same way that sometimes you see, I don't know if you've seen this, but like um I've seen some teens when they see like babies and toddlers figuring things out, that I don't know, there's sometimes like a oh like I
I
don't know,
haven't
maybe
seen
it's
it.
like
I
a
don't
preteen
spend
thing.
a lot of time with babies and toddlers at this phase of my life,
Um,
but
okay, so this is like maybe it's just unique to my work, but like I've seen this like oh like what like especially like it's sort of like this some like preteen phase that can be gone or maybe it's even earlier. Depends on I guess when they have like little siblings or whatever. I've I guess I've seen it more like in the fact that I've worked with mixed age groups and there's like oh like what are they doing? Like oh they're figuring it out, you know?
yeah.
And then you but like if you think about a mother, we look at that little one and it can, depends on how you're feeling, but it can really transform you to this place of self-compassion. And so I think we all feel both. Like we feel the like, oh, I'm watching someone go through something that I just got out of.
Struggle.
Oh.
Yeah,
And so it's like almost like when you look at it's the same, I think, as looking at that vulnerable part of yourself. We can feel that ick, like, oh, that little toddler part of myself that is just vulnerable and feeling these things. Oh, I want to stay away. And then we can get to a place of sort of the devotion to that baby in ourselves that we can have as a mom. So I
yeah,
think they're both natural phases
yeah.
of discovery.
And I sense that it's about building capacity to greet both. It's
Yeah.
not about, and a very practical, like the neuroscience nerdy part of me is wants to say to people listening, you literally have to invest in teaching your nervous system that it's okay to be that it is safe and okay when you don't know and when you're challenged and struggling because so much around us teaches us otherwise, that safety means certainty and the plan and all the things. And our nervous system loves certainty and knowing. It loves what was, not what is becoming. Our
Yeah.
higher intelligence loves what's becoming. Our soul loves our emergence of gifts and genius, but our brain wants the same old shit on repeat.
Yeah. And it's funny because I think the most rewarding work, at least for me, I mean, I guess this is why I guide people through this work, is in that
Yes.
messy middle
Yes.
between the safety of what was and the possibility of what can be
Yeah.
within each of us.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'm calling that lately, I have a model that I've been developing called the convergence window. And it's really becoming artful about meeting that in between place because we love the before when we have the insight and we love the action on the other side. But that alchemy in the middle, we don't
Mm,
talk enough about, I think. We say
how
liminal
do you?
space and then move on, but we don't
Right.
talk about it. And I think this brings me back to your genius, which is in that space, there's a necessary combination of structure, commitment, and clarity, and the wisdom of the creative, imaginal process. So I'm curious if you can speak to that a bit more. Like, I see them almost as like two beings learning to be friends.
Hmm.
The structure and the wild creative genius. Can you speak to your understanding of that relationship?
Yeah. And I want to remember to ask you, I want to hear a little more about why you named it the convergence window. I'm curious. So I want to
Well,
put a
let me
pin.
name it now while it's on my
Yeah.
radar because I'll
Sure.
be off somewhere else once you start talking. So, the
Okay.
convergence window, I will just say a little bit. I'm probably going to do a whole episode on this, so stay tuned. But I see it as like different forces literally converging. And
Yeah.
it often feels like both pressure and guidance and support. So it's a real actually a lot of complexity in that convergence window, but it is a window. It is an opening or a portal of sorts, but I kind of see it like when we can stay there as long as we need to, there is an opening into something new, but we have to build capacity to be with the essential pressures and tensions of it because that's when the insight, the becoming, and literally the human transformation happens. Just like diamonds, pearls, gold, like all this
Like,
stuff that we pay a lot of money for requires pressure and time and different elements to form. So that's the convergence window, convergence zone, convergence portal. We'll see what name I land on.
do you see it as a convergence between or of the known and the unknown?
That's one of the many convergence points, I would say. I
That's
would
a
say
part of
there's
it. Yeah.
convergence between self and world. I would say humanity and divine forces or higher intelligence. I think it's like if you can imagine lots of different energetic um
Like
beams. I
polarity.
don't know, like they're all coming into this one zone, creating the circumstances and context needed for something beyond it all to emerge.
Okay, perfect. So I love that you said that because the circumstances and the context is part of the work that I do with people.
Look at how we teed it up. I love it.
There we go. Perfect. I knew it was going to be in this answer. So, because I think that's the piece that Yeah, you're right. We don't spend enough time there. When we're engineering, I think we think that we're creating the channels and the systems, but I think a lot of it, the engineering ends up on this side. And what I'm imagining, it's like the unknown side, the possibility side, what it could be. And that's I look at my work as creating the systems with people. It's a very co-creation thing to essentially do just enough structure so that they naturally are channeled into the behaviors and the actions that support all this.
Mhm.
And so I do have a lot of frameworks. I love to use frameworks, and I find that they work for different people in different ways. Actually, I have this, I don't know, I kind of want to share this with you, but I don't know if I can.
Well, it
Um,
won't translate to a podcast.
let
So
me think
just
about, I'm
consider
trying,
that
trying to
people
think of
can't
how
see.
to make it. I have this, imagine a compass rose and it has 8 different points. And so the frameworks that I look at just specifically for business are the guiding vision. So that's kind of this over here, right where you want to go. And then the sort of foundational pillars under that, the very first one is leadership habits. And leadership habits, I call them habits because they are the systems that channel you towards your vision. But a lot of those habits are embodied practices because I think that one way we can go with habits and wellness practices and all this stuff is like trying to cram it into our days, and it becomes sort of the opposite of what it needs to be for us. So the habit of being present and grounded is more than just checking off it on a box, right? But we work with the leadership habits. And then in your business, we work with culture. And that's a really interesting component because culture starts from when you're just one person, culture as a business owner. And this is why I love working with families as well. It's like how culture can be defined so many different ways, right? But one of the ways I love it is from Seth Godin, where he says culture means people like us do things like this.
Mm,
If you think of that as a statement just for you, and you think that if you get really clear on that statement for yourself, and that statement is just your magnet, if you really embody it through your leadership habits as a person, you magnetize the right circumstances just through people like me do things like this. And that creates your culture. And so from there, we're looking at the right people in the right seats, which I'm sure many people are familiar with from all sorts of business models. EOS is like, I think, one where that's been used a lot lately. And then we get into the marketing, the sales, and the smooth operations of the business. So to me, that's kind of the way that it's structured. Like if you think of what's the foundational work, I mean, I do think of it as a compass rose, and you may need to focus on different things at different times. But if you jump right into your marketing, which I think a lot of us go like, what's my message? How am I going to do the sales? Or what's my product? Or if you feel uncertain and you skip right to, all right, what is our operating plan?
yeah,
Or you're like, I just need to meditate more. Let me make a chart and make sure I do that. You're kind of, I think that's where people get stuck, and
yeah.
they don't, they're sort of just holding on to trying to create certainty again, which is stuck, right?
Yep. And control is always rooted in fear. And it's different than agency. And what I hear is your work very intentionally is rooted in embodiment. Embodied leadership is what I would say. Like, be the business, be the essence of it, and from there we create the the particles of what we do. We create the to-do list, we create the marketing strategy, but doing the work of am I being in alignment with my work in the world, with my vision for the world. That's what embodied leadership is when I talk about it. It's like I've seen so many people who have a vision for more compassion in the world, let's say. They want people to be more kind to people. And they are abusing themselves daily with their to-do lists, with their self-care expectations, with their shaming of themselves. And so without that piece, it's all just performance. And it's
Yeah,
performance that is depleting. And I love that you are so clear on the importance with people of making it simple, creating the space so that they can actually thrive and create from a structure that is nourishing, not depleting.
absolutely. Yeah, and so it's interesting because, as a business coach, I'm sure you work with people on in multiple phases of business. So if I'm starting from with someone who's just creating a business or they've kind of been a solopreneur and they're ready to make it something more and get a team going, we're having a lot more conversation about the systems, um, in terms of how to, what to build. If I'm working with someone who has $1 million company, he's running a huge team, he's got the business to a place where he feels like it's really working, or let's say he does, and it feels like things are going well. I feel like my company culture is good, but he or she is feeling depleted
Mm.
and in survive mode,
Yep.
which is, what I call sympathetic mode, um, is feeling that crunch and pressure and feeling the need to survive and just get through day to day. So that person, we're working on something different. We're working on the leader you are is in not in the sympathetic nervous system, but in the thrive mode, in the parasympathetic. And how do we layer your practices one at a time, right? Again, we're not engineering a huge, big thing. But we layer your practices one at a time to where you are the leader that your company needs, and you're also the person that you wanted to be
Yeah.
before you even started this. I think a lot of people start this business because they have dreams that they about who they're going to be and freeing themselves to be that person, having more time to do the things that they love. And then they get all this functioning and they have lots of money and they have the choice of time. But it's still there's a piece that I think we don't always address, or we really just don't address it as often as we need to at all, which is this society has a lot of tricky pieces that have been built over thousands of years that call us away from living as we really want to live and as we're, our unique, authentic self and contribution to society and dropping in what lights us up. That is a real human draw, and there's so many layers that we don't see. And it's really not just that we don't have enough time and money.
Yeah. Yes. If anyone is curious about cultural conditioning, go buy our book, Unstuck Yourself, Thrive Beyond Burnout, Discover Your True Purpose. I'm plugging it unapologetically because that was one of the goals is to call out those cultural narratives that are so normalized that we don't see them. It's like the water we're swimming in. So if you find yourself going, well, yeah, the dream didn't deliver on the promise. I have the status, I have the money, and it doesn't feel dreamy. That's a resource for
Well,
you.
literally, you're stuck in things that are, like you said, the cultural conditioning. So that book, yours Unstuck Yourself, literally helps you start to peel back those layers. So
Yeah.
plug away.
Speaking of layers, I cannot end this conversation. I know we're towards the end of our time without naming a couple of aspects of your design, like I often do in these episodes, that are, to me, they feel magically affirming. That's one of the things I really appreciate about human design as a tool. It's not telling you who you should be, it's reminding you who you are and who you were born to be. And that's through quantum resonance, because when we're who we are, we naturally attract right relationships, right opportunities. We're building the right business, and not right like it's a test, right like it feels good. So there are countless aspects of one's design I can pull. You and I have had several conversations about your design over coffee at various times, and I wanted to bring something that we hadn't talked about. So there's one aspect I'm going to lay for the people listening because it's just cool to know. But then I want to go into another. So those two aspects are one is your life purpose gate. And we have talked a little bit about this. And that is, there's 64 gates in the human design chart, and they're all in different positions. And the life purpose gate is the one that is really about if you imagine the light of the universe, I'm going to get a bit spiritual for a moment, pouring through you like a diamond and refracting out. This colors the essence of that. And what that means is that as the diamond that we are, we will experience pressure around this theme as well. So yours is all about the balance and the dance between rhythm and consistency and extremes. So you are
Nailed
here to
it.
embody one who honors natural rhythms and maybe even uses extremes to calibrate a new rhythm. So it's not about fixation and oh, I found my rhythm, I'm going to hold it forever and ever and ever and never change it because that's just rigidity. But like I'm going to do a sprint. I thought of this when you were talking about the sprint. I'm going to do a sprint. And then on the other side of that, I'm going to rest and recover. And this recovery, I needed an extra day. This sprint, I needed it, to be this long. So I hear that in what you're doing with and for people. And it's really fun to reflect back to someone. By the way, you're doing your life purpose. Cool. That's really exciting. So there's
Thank you. I just want to say I love what you just brought up about sprint because that's used so much in the business world. And rest is really needing to be incorporated into the end of our sprint. And it's just something that I mean, you'll see people just pack sprint, 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 sprint,
that.
and there's no necessarily recovery period. So I love that you named that.
And
And
athletes know it. If you look at any professional athlete, they know they can't run back-to-back marathons without a massage, so just think about it also on practical terms. What would you say if you knew somebody was doing back-to-back marathons? You say you're going to get injured. I'm concerned about you.
yep.
Same thing goes for business.
Same.
Now, here's the thing that I was excited about sharing. And I love how I play with charts because it's deeply intuitive, because truly it's like a kaleidoscope. I could look at a million different things. But I was called to your Mercury gate, which you're and there's two sides, there's two Mercury gates, one's unconscious, one's conscious. The conscious usually reflects what we are here to say that will most resonate. So it's often the thing people ask us about naturally. It's the thing that if we are doing a program or building a business, it's helpful to keep in mind in our messaging because it's just on that energetic level, it's going to hit more powerfully than another message because it's literally in our design. And so yours, I love this so much, is all about this is going to feel good to your nervous system. Creating aligned action plans that support steady, sustainable progress, building structures that help things grow and flourish over time, beginning things intentionally rather than impulsively, and recognizing that alignment is far more important than simply following a damn plan. So, in shadow or in the
Wow.
disempowered expression, it's about getting stuck in planning, organizing, decision making, believing the plan itself is the work. I did all of this before we met and had this conversation, by the way. And feeling attached to following through simply because something was started rather than because it's still aligned. So being willing to not finish everything is part of the gift of this gate. So I just got
Wow.
super excited knowing that this is your work, this is you aligned with purpose, this is you what you were here to say, and this is why it's so easy for you to do it both with families and with businesses and business owners because it's not about the niched client like we're
Right.
so called to figure out. It's about the resonant message. And you've
Yep.
got that through your life purpose and your Mercury gate that are just working beautifully together right now. So, how does all that land?
I mean, it feels like, did she just pause this whole
I'm
thing and like
showing you
look
the
at
sheet.
me
I'm
and
showing
then
you
go,
my
what
cheat
did we
sheet.
talk about in the conversation? Just write it all in. That's insane. I mean, yeah, yes, yes, yes to all of it. What a great summary of the work that I do, of the shadow part that I have gone through and still am in practice of dancing with, so that, and I think my devotion is so that we don't get stuck in that world, but that we find the beauty in all of those systems and ways that we can channel ourselves to reclaim and claim the parts of ourselves that are ready to be lit up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I think structures that support our natural human rhythm is what I'm getting, right? Like that's what you do is it the structures aren't to support the structure to say you have the structure. They're to support the human that is living within the structure so that that life feels good.
absolutely. Yeah, the structure and the structures can be environmental, they can be practices, and we leave our body when we try to force those or do too many at one time. So it's about structures that support our humanness and our human need to be in our body and live out these practices. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, I appreciate you being here but it will all be in the show notes, but because some people like to hear it, tell people how they can find you and stay connected with you if they're like, "Oh my gosh, I need a Korie in my world." Please.
Oh, well, I would love to connect with anyone that is in your world. So they can find me at Korie, Korie, Kennedy.com. And I've got a few workshops coming up, one for parents, one for business owners this fall. So they can find that on my events page.
Wonderful. Well, I appreciate you taking time to share on the podcast. I appreciate you as a dear friend, and I appreciate you as someone who regularly is willing to wrangle my own creative chaos in service of me actually being able to live my own purpose more deeply. So thank you.
Well, I just feel incredibly blessed to have met you. And when you walked in the room the first day, I was like, this girl. And I'm just so happy for the work that you're doing in the world and how we're resonating together. And I hope this is the start of many more things we do together.
Wonderful.